Care doesn't always arrive with a plan. Sometimes it starts with noticing, with being close enough to see what's missing, and staying long enough to feel responsible for it. Today's conversation is about community that's built slowly, about the limits of good intentions, and about what happens when care has to evolve into access. We're talking about showing up and knowing when the most ethical thing you can do is build pathways so others can receive the care they truly need. This is Who Cares and is a conversation about dignity, timing, and choosing to stay. Welcome to Who Cares, the podcast that embarks on a profound journey into the heart of empathy and indifference in our modern era. Each episode of Who Cares brings you insightful conversations with a diverse array of guests from various industries and walks of life. But Who Cares goes beyond individual stories. We dive into the larger societal and psychological undercurrents that have led to a perceived decline in collective empathy. Who Cares isn't just a podcast. It's a powerful call to action for reigniting the spirit of empathy within each of us. Let's find the answer to who cares together. Welcome to Who Cares. So I'm curious, when you meet somebody for the first time, how do you usually introduce yourself? What do you want people to know about you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I first have to convince them that my name is real because most people are like, Hughes, like, are your parents comedians? I'm like, it's a family thing, one of those things. But I don't know. I don't really ever have kind of an agenda or want them to know anything about me. I just hope that I provide kind of a nice presence for them for whatever little moment that is in the day. But my name is Hughes, and I run a purpose-driven merchant design studio called Residency, and we sponsor trauma therapy sessions for LA residents transitioning out of homelessness.
Wow.
And we're lucky to partner here with Soul Tenders.
Yeah. How did that start?
There's a lot of backstory to it, so I'm not sure how much you want.
Yes,
but,
let's hear.
So my business partner, Tyler, he actually kind of started the smaller concept of it back in 2007 when we were in college, and he knew how to sew, and so he started kind of crafting and sewing pockets onto t-shirts and then would sell it around campus and then would take the money and buy food and clothes for people on the streets in Skid Row. And I joined shortly after, and it was just, when you're in college, still a little wide-eyed and, overly idealistic maybe. But it was also fun, there was something, I don't want to say romantic, but exciting about like, oh, our friends on the streets, they want to get into rehab, or they need to get their ID so they can get off the streets. Like, let's go up at 4 a.m, take them to the courthouse and do this and be back in time for classes at 8. Wow. And then do that. And then we'll sew in our dorm rooms and like our little closets at night. And it was exciting, and so we did that for a long time. And, there was a period where I had gotten into a really, really great grad program that was going to be on the East Coast. I was very excited. It was for international peace and conflict resolution. Wow. And I was thinking, like, should I do this? What should, kind of that we've graduated, like, what are we doing now with our degrees and our lives type thing. And Tyler is so brilliant. He'd gotten into some really incredible social psychology programs, had some really incredible mentors in that field. And we just kind of came together and we're like, either we give this an honest shot or we kind of pursue our own routes. Yeah. And we just decided to give it an honest shot. And so we launched it full time in about June of 2013. And we've been running it full time since. So, wow. Yeah, 12 and a half years or something like that.
That's a long time.
Yeah. So, and obviously there's been many iterations of it. It's evolved a lot. We've grown. We've learned, what's the best way for us to try to support people in need. Having been on the streets for years with people. And so a lot of changes there, but that's kind of the general gist of how it all got started for us.
Yeah. So you kind of started from the beginning and then you jumped right to the end.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, what was it like the initial, when you started bringing things to people in Skid Row, the response like?
Honestly, it was really cool. Like, at least for me, I mean, there were plenty of times it was stressful where there would be somebody in crisis and we didn't know how to deal with that. We weren't case managers or, anything like that. And so for us, I think this has kind of been a common theme of my life is just, I love having connections with people where by all means we shouldn't have connections, And so for me, getting to go down there and see our friends, because they said to come back. Like that was the thing is when Tyler went down the first time, they were like, hey, thanks for this, but come back, And he was like, okay.
Wow.
And so he started going multiple times a week, and then I joined, and, we had a lot of friends that were involved in it too, which was awesome.
Do you think that they wanted the company?
I think so. I think they just
Uh-huh.
liked talking with people and
Yeah, the
feeling like
relationship.
they could talk about the Lakers. They could talk about,
Uh-huh.
growing up and what type of music they played and, that
Mhm.
type, or like, I think there was one time Tyler showed up in a pair of those old like Sperry boat shoes.
Yeah,
And one of them was like, oh, my grandpa used to wear those all the time.
topsiders.
Yeah, the topsiders. Yeah. And so I think just, again, the human connection of like, oh, we've had similar experiences or we
Yeah.
have similar interests. And so for us, it was really fun, making genuine friendships on the streets. And that was something we always tried to be like very mindful of when we talked about it. It wasn't like, let's go feed the homeless today. It was, let's go hang out with our friends,
Yeah.
And not to be cliche, but that's really what it had become.
Yeah.
So I think the reception from their end was great. We loved it. It really grew, and eventually after a few years, then they started asking for kind of more of that deeper help of like, hey, I need to get my ID. It got stolen. Do you know how we do that? And so we were like, no, but we'll Google it.
Yeah.
We'll figure out like, what do you do with this situation? And then it just kept growing. And I think when we decided to launch it, or shortly after we launched it full time, either it's kind of a bittersweet thing, but either our friends had passed away on the streets or they had gotten the help they needed. And unfortunately, a lot of times you lose contact because
Right.
of whatever reason, maybe they lose the phone number and they hadn't saved yours and vice versa.
Right.
And then you're kind of wondering, I hope they're doing well, but you keep visiting the same spot and you're not seeing them back. So once that happened, we kind of took an internal look and we were asking ourselves, how can we provide an immediate impact that supports like a long-term gain? And while it was great to be on the streets, I mean, it took years to build that trust, before people were really asking for help. And so we were like, well, people need jobs. They need a roof over their head and they need a supportive community. And so we just decided to start providing supportive employment. So we contacted the Downtown Women's Center, who's an incredible organization. We love the DWC. And we just pitched them like, hey, we want to employ some of your people. Like it's not crazy work. It's nothing insane, but it's something that we feel like we can do. And I think also having been on the streets for so long and being in Skid Row for so long, we realized that, and I understand it from a logistics perspective, but so many of the programs are time sensitive, right? You go through a program for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days.
And all based on funding.
Yes, and all based on funding.
Right.
Yes. And once that's done, so many of those programs are already over impacted. So their case managers, unfortunately, can't be in a position to really help somebody take that next step. And I don't blame them. There's so much going on. So we told ourselves we would really prefer to provide qualitative support over quantitative. And yes, it's a little more cool for donors to be like, how many people did you help? Right? And you could be like, we helped 1,000 people this year. That's awesome. And great to companies and organizations that can do that. But we're a small business.
Right.
And so for us, it was just, let's just support the one or two people at a time and do what we can, and then find other ways of measuring that success and make it quantitative there. So now I can sit here and say, like, maybe we've only employed a handful of people over 8, 9, 10 years.
Right.
But we've provided over 14,000 hours of supportive employment.
Wow.
We were able to help everybody get a better job. They were making more money than we were.
Yeah. Wow.
And so
they really took to the program. What kind of jobs were they doing?
Honestly, a little bit of everything because we are such a small business.
Right.
It was like, hey, like, you want to help me look into some other types of sales concepts or marketing or, at first, though, it was making the pockets because that's what we were still doing. We were like a retail-focused company. And so, it was like single needle sewing, that type of thing. But then as we, again, tried to evolve, like how can we, generate more income so we can provide more support?
Yeah.
That's when we moved from a retail focus for ourselves to wholesale.
Okay.
So now we make merch for other businesses.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So whether it's the random coffee shop or bar or a tech company that needs an event or has an event or an activation, we source the blanks, we do the screen printing or embroidery or embellishment, and then we, provide the finished product. So,
wow.
yeah.
So what were some of the challenges that you faced when they first started doing the work? Were there a lot of challenges? Or?
For sure. I think it's just, and I think that's a great question because it ultimately leads us to like where we're at now. We wanted to be a supportive employer, and I feel like we've done a really good job at that. Yeah. That's something I can hang my hat on and feel proud of. And even with all of that support, there were still roadblocks, right? So many people that come from the streets, because most of the people we were working with were women or single moms type of situations. And so a lot of them obviously have debt, right? But the main thing that everybody has, just in general, but especially if you've been spending time on the streets, is trauma.
Right.
And so we felt like we're creating a very positive environment, very supportive environment, helping people get back into school to finish their GED or go to college, whatever they needed, paying them to help basically do that.
Right.
But still maybe some of their goals they just couldn't quite hit or achieve, something that for a person who hasn't been through their situation might seem kind of common to do. And so we started asking ourselves, like, why is that happening?
Right.
And having been in therapy myself, same with Tyler, for a long time, huge supporters of it, really convinced that the world would be a better place if every person went to therapy. Having spent our own time doing that, we just wanted to be in a place where it's like, let's say if Residency were to pay for my therapy, like as a benefit, right? I hope that I'm the type of person where I would want that same benefit to apply to everybody in my company, because we really believe small business has so much power in our society. There's so many small businesses. So why not be the type of small business that we just want for ourselves? So we started offering paid therapy. We're like, hey, if you want to go to therapy, like, we'll pay for it. Like, you've got a lot to unpack. There's a lot going on. We'll take care of it. But the problem at the time was that so many of the therapy programs that were available were over-impacted and underfunded, like we talked about. And so we literally had this experience happen twice to the same woman. She was on a wait list for like 11 months the first time, got in, had 2 sessions. Then the therapist moved to like a drug and alcohol rehab facility, which she didn't qualify for because she's sober.
Right.
And then she literally got dropped back to the bottom of the list.
Oh.
And then she waited another 12 months to get another therapist and had the exact same thing happen again.
Wow.
And so we sat there and we're like, this is just unacceptable, right? Because if I need therapy, it's not like I can wait 12 months for it. I want to get into it now.
That's a long
and get some
time
help
to wait.
now. Yeah. So we asked ourselves, well, what can we do? Like, we'll still pay for it, but what can we do? And that's when we created our residency trauma therapy program. So we reached out to a group that's kind of based out of Torrance, and we reached out to Soul Tenders. One of my friends who works for y'all introduced us. And I was just like, hey, we have this demographic of people we're trying to support, and we have the funding. We're going to pay for them to go to therapy. But our requirements is that it's like immediate access and that it's indefinite. That's all we ask. We're not going to put a cap of like 12 sessions on it or 10 sessions. And y'all agreed, and it's been awesome.
Wow.
And so for us, that's been cool because I'm not a therapist. I'm not licensed or anything like that.
Right.
And so now we have this really incredible network of professionals that do this every single day. And we can just be like, I can talk to the case manager at the programs we work with. They're like, hey, I have this individual who's got 3 young kids. They're high risk, high need. They need to get into, see and talk to somebody right away.
Right.
And then we'll all reach out either to you or the other therapy group, depending upon availability and the clients, kind of what they're looking for. And then it gets going. And it's just it's been awesome. It's from the individuals we've talked to or heard from, their testimonials and how much it's helped, to the case managers we've talked to that, are just saying like, we don't know any other programs at the moment that are doing this. And it's been, you're kind of bridging a gap. And that's not to pat ourselves on the back. It's just like, we feel glad that we identified a need and we're able to network in a way that provided a solution.
And so is this all possible through your retail sales?
Yeah. So most of our income is through the wholesale sales.
The wholesale.
But we are also a nonprofit as well.
Okay.
So donations are a huge part of it for sure.
Terrific.
And that's something that we're really trying to, we want to be sustainable off the business. And for the most part, we have been.
Wow.
We want donations to be supplemental. But we're also at a point where we're trying to grow and expand. And so we're definitely trying to figure out how we can bring more donors into the fold, just that type of thing. But for the most part, yeah, it's working with businesses, and it's businesses all over. That's been the cool part is it's, again, the local mom and pop shop that only needs the minimum order quantity of 50 shirts.
Right.
We do that.
Right.
Or it's some clients who are like, hey, we've got this massive festival at Dodger Stadium. Can you produce 18,000 pieces or something like that?
Wow.
Not 18,000.
Yeah.
But still thousands and thousands.
Yeah.
So and we can handle that with our different production partners and groups that have bought into what we're doing and our own team. So it's been really cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible.
It's been tough.
I can imagine.
Yeah. But it's been cool.
So I know I read that you kind of grew up with this spirit a little bit.
I'd say so. Yeah. Yeah.
Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. I think, I grew up very loving family, but a lot of difficulties, as every family has. Addiction was in my family and stuff like that. And so I think being the youngest and seeing, just things happening to different family members, it probably could have gone one of two ways, but for me, it kind of made me more tender and empathetic. And so I have just kind of always been that way. But I will say, I grew up in the church, and I grew up, thankfully, in a church that at the time to me was very progressive and wanted to be about, inclusive. And so I started going on mission trips. And of course, when you're, young and privileged, and you have all these ideas of how everybody grows up in the world. And that obviously very quickly shattered that notion.
Yeah.
But for me, the most profound things about those trips wasn't about what did you go out and do? It was truly, again, about this person who I should never have met, I met and they became a friend. Right. And so it's there's the 6 degrees of separation, but it's but once you just put yourself in a new situation, it becomes 1 degree immediately. And so for me, I think that's always been so profound. And that's why I love traveling, is all of a sudden I'm crossing paths with all these people from different countries in the airport. And where are they going? What are they doing? What grief have they experienced? What joys do they have on the horizon? And I just find that truly, truly fascinating and really moving.
Yeah.
And so that, I think, getting to travel a lot really shaped me. I've spent a lot of time around the world and in India and got to work on, my capstone piece about is foreign intervention and aid actually beneficial, and then unlearning a lot of those things and how maybe it's not, right? But there's ways that we can still be supportive of grassroots movements,
right?
And indigenous populations and locals on the ground and all those things,
right? And
so I think when I was making that decision of do I pursue residency full time, stay here in LA, or do I, go out to DC at American University and have these incredible mentors that work for the Peace Corps and all these things. It sounds awesome. It's I love the show The West Wing. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. So I'm this is my dream,
Wow.
But I just was no, this is where I grew up, and there's so much need here. And I think Tyler and we were talking about it the other day, why do we do what we do? And there is no real answer besides it just feels right. Not out of any other reason, it just feels right. And it gives us a purpose. And it's really nice to live when you have a purpose.
So tending to more of a smaller group and making differences in a smaller way, like you say, which still really makes a difference, and maybe a more focused difference. I can imagine you have some incredible stories. Is there anything you can share with us?
It's just been cool to see people helping themselves, and being able to be a little bit of the support for that, and because when we get these testimonials through the trauma therapy program, right, this is, typically a young single mom who's come from a domestic violence background, housing insecurity, and is taking care of her kids, probably working multiple jobs, and is talking about how great it is in therapy to start to work through the trauma. And so what is my role in all of that? Getting them connected to the therapy partner and then paying for it, and that's it. So it's an important thing, but it's small. Right. And so I think for me, the coolest part is just these people that are resilient, and are continuing to show up for their little things, for their family and themselves every day, Because for us, when we were looking at therapy and as we've experienced it, we want it to be multi-generational healing. And so that's been really cool because now we actually have some of the first kids of the participants who want to go to the program and want to, you know, get some help and talk through it in therapy.
Sure.
And that's literally what we wanted. You know, it's not just for the mom too, it's for the kids. They've got hard to process all that type of stuff when you're young, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. As far as stories go, I just think we've had a number of people who have gotten off the streets and gotten off good jobs or gotten good jobs and, you know, have reconnected with their family across country and they hadn't seen them in a decade or so. And, you know, they wanted to start their own nonprofit and maybe they didn't, but they're working for one and they really like it. And, you know, one of our employees right now, she's incredible. She's been with us for a long time. She's truly like family for us. You know, her dream is to start her own business that also takes care of women that were in her situation. You know, so we're trying to help her work on a business plan and
building
you know, like
on,
what is it? What are costs of goods sold? Like, let's break that down. You know, how do you factor your time into that as the business owner? You know, and it's not that I know all those things, but we figured out together. You know, so I think just seeing people be successful because they were resilient is so cool. Like, I just don't know how else to say it. It's just so
I can
cool,
imagine.
you know?
It's amazing. And I'm wondering, with such trauma and experiences that they've had, how much of it is a challenge to even get them to believe in a goal?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's obviously, as you would know, it's different for every person. But I think it's all about starting small, you know, and like for some people, it's, I need you to show up on time as best you can, you know, like that's the first thing. And I know you have to take the bus and for this reason, and here's how we can try to help with that. But let's start there, you know, just try to show up on time and then we can decompress from there or we can figure things out from there. For other people, maybe they've processed it more or maybe their situation is different. I don't want to ever compare situations because that doesn't do anybody any good. But maybe they have more of a capacity to work at a, you know, higher level for certain things. So just we would just try to sit down with people and be like, okay, what do you actually want? Like, if money wasn't an issue here, what are your goals? And it's like, oh, you want to get your GED. Oh, you want to pay off credit card debt. Oh, you want to get your own place. You want to get a car. Okay, so now let's look at the debt. And we would just sit down and do these things with them. And I think breaking it down into those kind of bite-sized chunks,
step by step,
exactly, is so helpful because if you have a lot of debt, it can feel very overwhelming to be like, well, there's no way I'm going to ever pay this off. And it's like, okay, well, if you pay off X percentage over this time, now you've already eaten to this, and then you can start to do this. And I think just helping them see it from like you have to look at it up close and then you have to step back, you know? And I think that's always been really, really helpful in getting people to build that confidence. Because that's the biggest thing is like just helping reestablish some of that confidence, you know? But it's so ironic because that can't really happen until you're in a safe space. Right? Until you're secure. And then the ironic part about that is that's usually when trauma comes to the surface, you know, is when you start to feel normal. And that's when I noticed that in my own life from some traumatic things that had happened. I remember literally after, you know, my father had passed away and there was all these other things that connected to when I was living abroad and some really horrific things I had seen. It was like 6 months later or something. And a friend was like, how are you doing today? Which also, I love that question. It's not how are you doing, it's how are you doing today? And I was like, today I'm okay. And I remember saying, I actually feel normal. I feel normal again. And maybe a week later is when like all the PTSD really came to the surface. Settled in. And next thing I know, I was having like panic disorder coupled with OCD, which I'd had OCD my whole life. But the panic disorder was really new for me. And for over a year, I felt like I couldn't do anything. And but that was because I was finally like in a safe place to address it. So I went to a lot of therapy, you know, did EMDR, did all the things that you're supposed to do. And that helped a lot. But for me, it was finding something to establish my confidence back. And I'm not saying this works for everybody, but what worked for me, this was years ago, was breath work and cold exposure. It literally helped rewire my nervous system.
Cold exposure?
Yeah, so it's become really trendy. I almost like feel weird talking about it because it's like every podcast talk, you know, like all these guys do it and it's like a bro thing and I'm like, you know, but for me it was about like first working with my breath because when you're panicking you feel like you can't breathe. and trying to address that in a small way, and like being in control of my breath and understanding that this is a process, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then the cold exposure, whether it was like a cold shower or like an ice bath,
Oh.
you know, when you first get in, it's freezing.
Mm-hmm.
So your body's like, run, run, run. Like,
Right.
let's get out of here. And
Right.
that's how my brain is when panic disorder is happening. Like you walk into a room and, you know, the alarm bells go off and it's like, I need to get out of here. I can't.
Yeah.
It's hard to breathe and all this stuff, right? And so by forcing myself to sit in that, I think it's called hormetic stress, right? Which is like beneficial stress to your body, to build stress tolerance, like by forcing myself to sit in it in a safe way, not like doing it, you know, unprepared or dangerous, but it literally like retaught my brain how to be like, yeah, you can breathe through this. Like it's okay. And so I think therapy coupled with those things really allowed me to get my confidence back to a certain degree. And then to begin to actually process through my trauma. And so I think having experienced that myself, it's just something that we want to kind of replicate however is needed. Like we don't go out and be like, you have to do A, B, and C. But we're like, you want to go to therapy? Great. You want to talk about this? We can do that. You want to, you know, game plan for how we achieve these things? We can do that. But like you said, it's just the step by step. You know?
So I'm curious, from when you started to now, working with people on the streets, have you noticed any changes in the types of trauma that people suffer that limit them and
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know, honestly. I think there's so much in our current culture and society of the way that people view the unhoused and people that are housing insecure or homeless. That to me was the most eye-opening part. You know, it's like everybody's like, well, they're drug addicts or they're all mentally ill. And I mean, last I checked, it's like literally maybe 1% more of the homeless population has more drug addiction than the general population, you know? And so I think just understanding that, like when they lost their dad when they were 17, that was traumatic, you know? So who am I to judge them for how they responded to it? Because I had a full support system and they didn't. And I think that was so eye-opening for me. And we've had conversations with our employees where they said that, like, you know, they were sharing their story and all the people they lost. And they said, you know, to our donors, all of you could have gone back home to your parents. You could have gone to your siblings or best friend's house. I didn't have that. So where do you go when you don't have that? You go to a facility. You're on the streets, you know? And I think... So I don't know. For me, that's just been extremely eye-opening. Is that if I would have had maybe the lack of support that they did, I very well could have ended up there too, you know? And so I don't know. And I don't know if the trauma has changed, like even since COVID's hit for these individuals.
I wondered about that too.
Yeah, you know, because especially being in Skid Row, I mean, what a scary time to be there for so many people when it first was sweeping through. And yeah, I don't know if it's changed, but it's obviously still there. It's in all of us, right? We all have trauma, but for them, it's just such a different thing because they're truly trying to survive, you know, like at a practical level, you know, to get another meal or whatever it might be, you know, which is, even if I felt from an existential or emotional perspective that I'm trying to survive, there is still some differences. You know, I still had a roof over my head where I could try to process and work through that stuff. So I don't know. It's just I think it's made me a lot more patient in my understanding of others. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Some days it doesn't.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But, yeah.
Do you notice any differences in the way we handle the unhoused or trauma in general here in the States versus in other countries?
You know, I really like that question because I was traveling a couple years ago for a friend's wedding in Switzerland, and I stopped in London to see another friend of mine first and spent a couple days with him. And we were just walking around. I loved it. It's like, London's incredible. I could live here, yada, yada, yada. I want to be a writer here one day, you know, like all those things. And as we were walking around, he had actually said, like, because he's from SoCal originally too, he goes, don't say anything to me, but just try to like find differences, you know, while you're walking around. Like, what's it like here? Like, whether it's public transit or something. Like, what's the differences here in London versus like LA? And the number, I realized two things. I was like, one, I never saw like anybody walking a dog. which was so bizarre to me.
Oh,
I was like, this is weird. Like everybody walks dogs in LA, you know?
Yeah.
But the most important thing I noticed, I was like, I didn't see like one person on the street. And he's like, yeah, we have government housing. We have programs for it, you know? And I know that that's a very loaded topic and conversation, one that I probably don't need to get into today, but we've seen it work in other places, you know, where it's people need housing, they need a supportive community, and then we can figure out what else they need beyond that, right? And again, people can't address their traumas to heal, to hopefully find some upward mobility until they have housing. And so how we do that, I don't know, but it's clear that there's ways to do it because it's being done in other places. So
successfully,
very successfully too. And there are so many positive benefits that come from that too, which again, I don't even need to get into, but yeah, I think I always like am hesitant to talk about like how is LA addressing it because I've never been in charge of trying to address the whole problem. Thank God. And so I don't ever want to condescend on somebody when I've never been in their shoes, trying to address it that way. Yeah. With that being said, there are so many things that we could do better.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you do see it. You are living it based on the programs that you've developed and the experiences you've had for a long time. So I do think you could speak to it on
that's true.
Different levels.
Okay, thank you. If that's the case, I think the biggest issue that we have in addressing the problem the right way or the situation the right way is the lack of collaboration. I personally feel like I've seen it's like kind of like a lot of groups just kind of want their piece of the pie, right? So they can explain to their donor base like this is what we've done again, and what they're doing is great. Right. But I think if we had more collaboration, then it wouldn't be this revolving door of homelessness that we're seeing. Right. And so for us, we literally that's what we try to do. And so we went to, at the time it was Imagine LA, and we said, hey, we've got the funding for a trauma therapy program. You've got the people that you're supporting with your case managers. How can we work together? We want to pay for them to go. You just got to be the ones that help us communicate what's working, what's not working. And then that group kind of shifted, and now it's the whole child. So a lot of those case managers went over there, and so we support the people from there. But it's like collaboration's worked great. Right. You know what I mean? Right. It's like we have one thing that we can do here. You're carrying the really heavy load over here by looking after them daily or, weekly or monthly. Y'all are doing something incredible here. Why not create this little network where everybody can be involved? We can all play our part, and hopefully it benefits these individuals in the process. And so I think if there was more collaboration, we would find more success, personally.
Do you think that's because of a lot of the stuff becoming more of a political event instead of let's roll up our sleeves and do the work?
For sure. Yeah. I really do. I forget the exact quote, and not to be like jaded when I say this, but I think I'd heard someone say essentially like there's a lot of money to be made off of the poor. And I think that we've seen that, whether it's different industries and fields that, have maybe taken advantage of that situation. And so, I don't know, again, for us, it just feels right. It's like this person, maybe there were some decisions they made that led them down a certain path. But ultimately, like, life isn't fair. I was born into a much easier situation than a lot of people, right? So let's just do our part. Like, let's just truly do what we can. And I think that's what living overseas initially first helped me realize, and then being on the streets in Skid Row has further affirmed that. Right. But yeah, we could have, I really believe we could have great success with addressing the situation. Yeah. But I think we're going to need to all work together a lot more.
Well, I think that's a good word, is collaboration. But I also think, too, that people, when they think about the unhoused, or my experience of people who talk about it is it's an us and them type thing. 1,000%. There's no relating. There's no, that's not me. Yeah. I would never have that. There's no sense of that you could be there in minutes under certain circumstances, right? Yeah. There's no belief. There's no fathoming that I'm anything like that other person. Yep. And I think from what you're sharing today is that you realize that you easily are like that other person.
Oh, for sure. For
on,
sure.
on many different levels. And
Yeah.
the closer that we could get to an understanding of that, I think there would be a
Totally.
ton more collaboration.
Yep.
So it's not a
Yep.
keeping this person at arm's length, right?
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
that's something cool that I've always admired in my business partner is, you know, he had his own situations growing up that he had to deal with and handle, you know, but he also, from what I understand in his family, they would occasionally bring in like their friends that had been kicked out or had become homeless and stuff. And so for him, it was just like, I
normal.
guess, yeah, just, you know,
Yeah.
this could happen to anybody. And I think that's why he probably started going up to Skid Row and spending time with people. It was like, could have been me or them.
Yeah. So he
know?
was taught young that there's a way to resolve these issues, and here's how you do it.
Yeah. And just also just to be like nice to people. You know what I mean? I think like that's
kindness.
like, I don't know. Not that fixes everything, but man, especially in today's society, that goes a lot longer than.
It goes a long way.
Yeah, it really does. So, I think just like you said, it's not an us or them, and that was probably one of the coolest parts when we had first started, and people on our campus would start asking us like, "Can I come up and meet so and so? Can I go and I heard you say that Linda always likes to sing when you guys first get there. I'd love to hear what she sings." You know, and just these little things where it's like. Yeah, that's just like what you would do on a Thursday night or, you know, it's all of us together. Yeah. And so, I don't know, I think that's kind of been a driving factor for us. Yeah. As we've tried to sort out how we should act and handle our business.
Well, I think there's just so much fear. There's a lot of fear in the world. I remember I was out one night with my husband and we were having dinner and sitting outside. And there was a girl that kept walking by us back and forth and back and forth. And you know, she finally came to the table to ask for something. I don't even remember what it was, food or money or something. And so we ordered some food for her, and she's standing there, and she's talking about clearly had mental health issues. You know, she was talking about how she was clearing out spiders in the back alley and all this different stuff. And me, I'm a very metaphoric person, so I was taking everything she was saying metaphorically and just kind of observing the conversation I was trying to have with her and acknowledging her and saying while we were waiting for the food and asking her questions to see if she could communicate. And it was very hard to communicate. There was clearly something in between us that we couldn't talk that was going on for her mentally. But what I noticed, which was so amazing, is she started out at the edge of the block kind of talking to me. And as she's telling me more stories, she's moving closer and closer. And by the end, she's standing right next to me. And I thought, this woman just wants to be close to somebody. She wants to feel like somebody is connecting with her. And I thought, I get this. Yeah. I know what this feels like. Yeah. You know, and regardless of the inability to communicate, I could feel we made a connection, and it just felt right, and it just felt good. And you know, she took the food and left, and it was fine. But it was for me, it was such an incredible experience to feel that.
And it's just true.
Yeah, it's
like
just human.
It's exactly. We're all struggling.
Right.
We're all going through something or multiple things. We all have trauma. We all, you know, and so when that's what, again, I think what's so cool when you have a truly human connection with somebody that you never should have. Right. Like, I think there's something that's very visceral and beautiful about that, because, I mean, there were times where, you know, I had lost a loved one, and this is when we were still like on the streets of Skid Row, and I remember telling, you know, several of my friends up there, like, and I broke down and cried, you know, and it wasn't like, oh, look at this homeless person comforting me. It was, oh, this is Lou. You know, and he's giving me a hug. And
he gets me.
You know, this is Larry, this is so-and-so. And they're like, yeah, I lost this person too at this age in my life, you know? And it's just like, that's all it was. It was just friends, you know? And friends that also got on each other's nerves. You know, I'd be like, you told me you were going to do this on Tuesday. Now you haven't. So now we missed our appointment, you know? And it's just like one of those things too. So but that's how it is for all of our relationships. But yeah, I just think deep down, like, everybody wants to belong. Wants to, again, for lack of better turns of phrases, like they just want to be seen, you know, and acknowledged. So I don't know. I'm not great at it. I don't do it well plenty of times, but I think that's for me, like I always want to, whether it's like the grocery store clerk, like, look him in the eyes and, hey,
Yeah.
thanks,
Yeah.
or if I ever see like a panhandler or somebody on the street and they're asking for money, if I don't have anything to give them, I will still look them in the eyes and say, I'm sorry, I don't, because at least they're like, and usually I get like a head nod, like, thanks for acknowledging me.
Yeah, because people just usually avoid, I would imagine, or they
and
look
like
away.
you said, there's a lot of fear there, right?
Yeah.
And so I would never tell people like, just go down to the streets and start making friends. Like you have to be
Right.
safe. You have to be smart about it,
Sure.
as you would with any situation in life.
What would you tell the public based on all your experience of if they wanted to get involved, what would that look like? Or how would they start?
Residency could use your support. I would start there. But no, if you're doing something, I'd say do it because you want to try to get to know other people. Like, I think a lot of times now, especially with the advent of social media and stuff and how that's culminated, so much of it is like clickbait. People are like, look at me feeding like 500 people today. And it's like, I'm not going to say that that's wrong entirely because you're still feeding X amount of people.
Right.
But Tyler and I have always been very careful, and it's almost to a detriment of probably a marketing aspect. Like we very rarely show anybody's face because we don't want anybody to ever feel exploited.
Right.
So I don't know. I would say if you're going to do something like, my mom and I still around the holidays, like when I go back to visit her, we'll try to be like, hey, Christmas Eve morning, like let's just make some turkey sandwiches, go down to Santa Ana and just pass them out, and just talk to people for a minute.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe try to do that, but again, do it in a safe way. I would say the biggest thing you can do is probably finding our already established organizations and research them, and try to get some more information on them. Like, what are they doing? What are their goals? What's their purpose? How are they helping? How are ways that I can support? Do they need somebody? Do they need volunteers every Thursday night? Like my mom's Bible study is a perfect example of how to get involved. So obviously she's very, I would say, close to the bone, right? With me helping run this company, being a co-founder, and her having listened to me vent like every week about the stresses, the financial stresses, all this stuff for, almost 13 years. She does a really amazing job of like, how can we support what you all are doing at Residency? So all year, her Bible study group, they're also like sewers and quilters. They hand make 50 quilts that we then donate to the Downtown Women's Center at the end of the year. The DWC then uses it for intake. So when a new woman shows up for either transitional supportive housing or permanent supportive housing, when they walk into their own room for the first time, there's a handmade quilt on the bed for them, right? Which is really cool. So they're just like, we can sew. Why don't we make some stuff? And then they have another group that they support in Santa Ana and a lot of them like to cook. And so like, I think every other Thursday or something, they literally make all this food for single moms and then just go down. And that's just their thing. It's like, oh, it's our Thursday taco night. We're going to go pass out food, with a group that's already taking care of these individuals. So finding groups that resonate with you and trying to support them however you can, whether that's financial, whether that's with your time or with the talent, that stuff goes a long way because small businesses in general are the backbone of America, but they're also like strapped a lot of times, right? And then to do that as a small business and a nonprofit too, can be even tougher. So don't hesitate to ask, like, how can we help? How can we support? Because we're trying, I can speak for myself and other groups, we're trying to find more support, We want more people to be involved in some capacity.
Yeah.
So
That's terrific.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your time today.
Of course.
And I've learned so much, and I really enjoyed having this conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate you having me. And more than anything, I really appreciate your partnership. It's been, I think we have 20 people that are now in the program, between the two therapy groups, yours and the other group that we've partnered with. And our goal is to just continue to get more. So I think in the next week, we'll have provided over 400 trauma therapy sessions. So, and we wouldn't be able to do that without you.
That's exciting.
So thank you for what you're all doing and letting us be a small part of it.
Thank you for doing the work you're doing.
Of course.
Yeah.